else? If everybody will sit back down again and
make yourself comfortable.
Stay there.
Miss Lincoln, would you rather sit or would you
Oh
rather
no, I
stand?
shall stand if I'm not to the
I'm
whole
going to stand
here.
because I know I'm going to.
Well, good afternoon to you all. I am so privileged to be able to visit with you this afternoon. Well, I must tell you straight on. I am so happy that you're able to come here to Washington City. It is such a gay and happy time now that that dreadful war has come to an end. Why, just this morning, Mr. Lincoln came to me and he said, "Mother, how would you like to go on a carriage ride with me this afternoon?" Oh, I was so excited. There has been such little time for these things in the past years. Well, this afternoon, Mr. Lincoln and I rode out into the Washington countryside. We were not the President and First Lady this afternoon. We were just the Lincolns of Springfield, Illinois. Mr. Lincoln, why, he seems so much more calm and at ease now that this bloody war has come to an end. He spoke about how he wanted to bring this nation back together. He does not want revenge against our Southern brothers. He wants to heal, to bring the country together as one. I told him that I was reminded of that old Bible story about the prodigal son. He came back to his family. He was not rebuked, nor turned away. He was welcomed with love and kindness, with open arms. And that is what we must do for our Southern brothers now. We must bring them back into this sacred union, the sacred union that so many have given their lives to preserve. Oh, we had such a lovely afternoon. We left the carriage for a time and we walked a short distance. We came upon a little pond surrounded by trees. Mr. Lincoln commented on how sweet and green it was. And then a shadow seemed to come over his face. He has had so many dreadful dreams in the past weeks. He took my hands into his and he said to me, "Molly, you are 9 years younger than I. I think I shall be passing on first. And when that time comes, promise me that you will lay me to rest in a place such as this." Why, it chilled me. But I promised that I would hold true to that. But I think it will be some time before I must make such a decision. Well, as I say, Mr. Lincoln and I had such a wonderful afternoon out in the countryside together. Oh, sometimes when I was on that little carriage ride with Mr. Lincoln, I closed my eyes and it brought back such wonderful memories of when I was growing up in Lexington, Kentucky. I think I remarked earlier that Mr. Lincoln always likes to say that 1D is good enough for God, but not for the Todds of Kentucky. You see, my family, the Todd family, is one of the wealthiest and most powerful in all of Kentucky. My father, Robert Smith Todd, why, he was a very successful banker, financier, and cotton merchant. Well, I think my papa financed half of Lexington. And my dear mother was Eliza Parker Todd. She bore 7 children. I am the 4th of those 7. My mama died when I was so very young. I was barely 6 years old. Mr. Lincoln and I have always shared that. We both lost our sweet mothers at a very early age. There are times when I have envisioned that scrawny little 9-year-old cuz in the wilds of Indiana carving those pegs for his mama's coffin. And I recall myself at that tender age of barely 6, the night my mama died. Try as I might, I cannot recall my mama's face, but I so clearly remember that night. Well, my sisters and I, we were down in our room at the end of the hall, and Papa, while he was pacing the floor, his head in his hands, my grandmother Parker was there that night. She was shouting instructions to the servants as they carried out armloads of blood-soaked towels and sheets. The next morning, Papa came to us and said, we must prepare to go on down and say farewell to our mother. We went down to Mama's room, and she lay there on the bed. She was so white. Her beautiful auburn hair was tied up in blue ribbons and sprawled across the pillow. I thought, oh, that must be the work of Mammy Sally, for Mammy Sally loved Mama so, and Mama loved Mammy Sally. But try as I might, I cannot recall Mama's face. And there, over in the cradle, was my new little baby brother, George. His little pink fists all balled up, and oh, he wailed up a storm. Well, my Papa, he remarried within a year to Elizabeth Humphreys, and they have had 9 more children. Well, you might say when I was growing up that I was a difficult child, so far as my stepmother is concerned. I have never called her mother. I have always referred to her as Mrs. Todd, my father's wife. As I say, I suppose I was a difficult child. Now, I mentioned Mammy Sally. Now, Mammy Sally was a lady of color and a lady of great girth, joyful and happy. Well, when I was growing up there in my Papa's house, I did not understand that Mammy Sally could not leave my father's house without his permission. I did not understand that she was a slave in my father's household. Well, Mammy Sally, she slept on a quilt on the floor next to our bed, so as if we needed anything during the night. She was in charge of all the Todd girls. And while Mammy Sally, she'd tell us stories. Sometimes I was rather skeptical of some of Mammy Sally's stories. Well, on one occasion, as I recall, my sister Elizabeth, she's my older sister, while we had quite an argument over the arrangement of some doll furniture in our dollhouse. Well, I can tell you, to this day, my sister Elizabeth cannot properly arrange furniture. Well, I admit that I was rather harsh with Elizabeth that day, and while Mammy Sally overheard the argument. Later that day, she took me aside and she said, "Marianne, Todd, you are the devil's child." And then she proceeded to tell me a story about a little jaybird. Mammy Sally said this here little jaybird, why, he would watch everything you did all day long and listen to everything you said all day long. And then at the end of the day, that little jaybird would fly on down to the devil's house and tell the devil all about what you'd done and said all day long.